You're with TrimTabs, and this is an exchange-traded fund, and it's the best performing ETF. What do you owe that to? I'm asking this because I want to get your insight in terms of the U.S. equity markets. Where should one invest? Where is the U.S. equity markets going?
So well, that's why. Since 2010, there's been over $1 trillion of float shrink, meaning that companies have retired over $1 trillion more shares than they've sold. And if you consider that since 2010, the global central markets have flooded the financial markets with lots of new cash between the ECB and the Fed and Bank of England and Bank of Japan. So there's lots of extra new cash chasing fewer shares. So what happens? The markets go up. So the fund is the 100 companies, just US now, we plan to go international soon, 100 companies that are reducing the number of shares the most, hence TrimTabs Float Shrink ETF is the name of it, or Float Shrink, reducing the number of shares the most, only and growing free cash flow so that they're not borrowing to buy.
You said you're thinking of going international soon.
Yes.
Which markets would you go internationally? Because you're only US, domestic
right.
now.
We probably start with Japan and then go to Europe.
Okay.
Because Japan has very active buyback culture. And nobody's trading on...
and Europe, interesting.
And Europe too.
Why? Is it because it's cheap?
Europe is cheap.
How about US? Is US cheap? Is it overvalued? Where do you see the target? Do you have targets for the year end?
I don't have targets so much. What I say is that the US economy is not growing that fast.
It's not?
It's not. Janet Yellen's comments got a lot of attention, saying that maybe 6 months after the end of tapering,
that's right,
that interest rates will start going up. But remember, each of the last 4 years since 2010, every time the Fed has enacted a new QE, it said, well, and then when the economy starts sustainably growing, we'll stop the QE. And they predicted, for the last 4 years, they predicted that we would be growing much faster than we've actually been growing. So each time they've been wrong. They've been saying we're going to grow fast, and we haven't. So why is anybody give any credence to the Fed statements now that we're going to be growing faster next year when we haven't grown faster yet? We look at real-time data on income tax collections,
right,
and that shows that after-tax income, after inflation, has grown at an average rate of 2% per year after inflation. After-tax income from all sorts of, everybody who pays taxes since 2010, that's not a sustainable growth rate. If it wasn't for the wealth effect from all the higher stock prices, I don't think if the U.S. would have very much growth at all.
So do you think the market overreacted after Janet Yellen spoke? And were you expecting her to say 6 months after the tapering, I would like to see the short-term interest rates higher?
No.
Was that a surprise to you?
It was a surprise. I don't think she meant to say it that way.
She did not mean to say it.
I think what she meant to say is that, well, if the data keeps going the way I hope it will, and the economy keeps growing the way I hope it will, probably around 6 months after we end tapering might be the time to start.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't think it was like, well, we're going to start at this time regardless. And since they've over-predicted the performance, and it doesn't look to me like, I don't see where the growth would come from. I mean, we probably will have a second quarter rebound because of the weather, but I think it's just going to be a rebound because of the weather. It's not going to be a rebound to a higher plateau of growth.
Well, I have to take you back and invite you back to our studios. Our time is up here, unfortunately, but it was very valuable. The insight was extremely valuable too. Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Charles Biderman.